You're on.
All right, I just want to ask you, Jason, like there's a lot of people that are renting out there and yet they're scared to buy. Like, why are they scared to buy?
I mean, what would your answer to that be?
Well, my answer
What's the one thing you get the most of?
They're afraid of the high interest rate.
Yep, absolutely.
They're like, that high interest rate, too much.
I'd say the biggest thing I hear right now is, I'm going to wait to buy for a year or two because the interest rates are so high.
Yeah, and I hear the same thing. They're like, I'm going to sign that year or two, or I'm going to sign a 2-year lease and I get a better deal.
Yeah.
But they're still spending $1,500 to $1,800.
I mean,
a month.
depending on where you're at, if you're in downtown Lee Summit, you're $2,500
You're
a month
right.
on an apartment.
And it's not as big of a house.
If you're buying a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom, two bath home, I mean, you're paying $2,500, $3,000 a month in rent.
Yeah.
So it just depends on your situation, but yeah.
I guess my question is, from a perspective of a mortgage lender, like, what's the cost of waiting? Like, I don't think we ever think about this.
So I would say not even from a mortgage lender perspective. I would just say from a finance perspective. So, for instance, like, what is the cost? What is a true cost of waiting to buy? Why am I so passionate about people buying homes, even in a market like this, even when rates are higher? Why would I tell my son to buy a home right now? Like, you need to buy a house. And I think that the reason is, if you think about it, when you're paying rent, what are you gaining? Like, what would you be gaining if you were renting a house?
You gain nothing except a place to lay your head at night and to hang out as a family and to wash your clothes.
Yep. So it's 100% interest.
Yeah.
100% interest rate.
100%.
The thing, like with renting it, it's good for a period of time. Maybe you do need it. Maybe you can't afford it yet. Maybe we got to work on your credit to get you there. Those are valid reasons to rent because you're working on a goal to buy. But if you're renting, you should be working on a goal to buy. That should be your only purpose of renting. So here's a true cost. Let's look at this. True cost of waiting to buy. Say you buy a house today, or you decide you're going to rent for the next year. Okay. Just say you do a 1-year lease on your
1 year, and they're going to go, hey, we're going to go from this time period to a year out.
Yep.
And then I'll buy.
Yep. So over the last 10 years, the Kansas City market has an appreciation on real estate of 7.85%. That's a 10-year average the last 10 years. So what is 7% of, let's say, $250,000, $300,000 to make it easy.
Right.
Easy math.
$300,000,
so $300,000,
which is the average price of a house in Lee Summit or Raymore or whatever.
It's first-time buyer price range house. $300,000, you're looking. That's $21,000?
Yeah.
That's 7%. So let's just be really conservative and let's use 4%. Because 4%, it's 3 to like 8% is like a 50-year average in Kansas City.
Right.
And I would say that's pretty similar in most markets. Like you get into some, like I'm licensed in other states. So you get into some other states, sometimes are a lot better than that. Some states are a little lower than that. But let's just use 4%. Let's cut that down. So 4% of $300,000 is $12,000. If I asked you today, Chris, I'm going to give you a $12,000 a year raise. Would you take it?
I absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
I'm a smart guy.
So then, if you decide to rent instead of buying, you're essentially cutting yourself $12,000 because that first year you're going to make $12,000 in appreciation on your house.
If you do nothing.
If you do nothing.
And that's the lowest common. You just chose the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, 4%.
Went low.
Yeah, went low. In 2020, people were making 20%. So I mean, in a year, not quite 20, but 15% was pretty, average.
Well, it wouldn't have been unheard of to hear somebody make 20%.
Yep. And so there's so many examples that we've seen. I know you've seen this, been in the business for a while. I've seen this, been in the business for a while, where a client bought a house 5 years ago, turns around selling that house for $100,000 more, $150,000 more. And if I told somebody, hey, would you like to make? I can almost promise you that if you buy a house and you keep it for 5 years, let's not even talk about house. If I said if you will do something for 5 years, I will pay you, I don't know, what's 12 times 5? $60,000.
Okay,
$60,000. I'll pay you $60,000. Would you take it?
Yeah.
So
I'll take the 12,000 and the 60.
Yeah. So that's the reason you buy. Even if you're buying for a year, 2 years, buy the house.
Well, take my wife and I, for example. You helped us finance our house that we're living in now. We've been there 8 years.
Yep.
Bought it for $230,000, and today I could turn around and sell it, depending on the market. But even in a lower market, I could sell it for $600,000.
If you needed to sell it like badly right now and say it was in bad shape,
I could sell for $600,000.
Yeah, $600,000.
It's 6 acres,
8
3,800 square feet,
Yep.
and I bought it for $230,000.
8 years, $400,000. I mean, who wouldn't do that deal? Who wouldn't want to make $400,000 in 8 years?
Even people that are investing in their retirement, who's getting that kind of money?
Yep.
Nobody.
And we're not even talking about when you're making your payment, that interest that you're paying is tax deductible. When you buy the house, some of the fees, like if you're paying points or something like that, tax deductible. And we're not even talking about your principal that you're paying down each month. Now, granted,
Right.
mortgages are a 30-year fixed mortgage typically. You pay a lot more in interest up front than you do in your principal, but you're still paying down principal each year. So, yeah, the true cost of waiting, minimum $12,000 a year on a $300,000 house. Minimum, that's the cost. Not counting, your interest write-off,
Right.
and your mortgage, your principal mortgage payment that you're going to be paying down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess what you're saying, what I hear you saying is, from a professional standpoint,
Buy the house. That's
buy
what I'm
the
saying.
house.
Buy a house. That's
buy
exactly
the
what I'm
house
saying.
and take the risk. So let's say you're borrowing money for 8.5%.
Mhm.
All right. Back when my wife and I bought a house in '98, interest rates were between, like, I think they were between 10 and 12 or 15%.
Yeah.
And actually, if you look at a 60-year period, 8% is not a bad rate. Like,
Did you make money on that house too?
Yes.
Oh, really?
I made a lot of money.
Oh, weird. I've never actually owned a house where I didn't make money when I sold it.
That's a good point. Neither have I.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever heard of somebody didn't make, unless they bought it like 1 month and had to turn around and sell it because of some kind of situation in their family or a divorce.
Yeah.
And so if you're renting, you got a long-term lease or it's coming to an end, what we're saying as professionals from the real estate standpoint and from the mortgage is buy the house, because you don't know what you don't know. And what you don't know is that that's going to be an investment that's going to make you money, and you will not lose.
Let's run it. So you buy a $300,000 house.
Which is the average
Yeah.
First-time home buyers in Lee Summit,
Right.
Raymore, Cass County. Yeah.
7.5% interest. Let's just call it 7.5% interest. You know, I'm not gonna, these aren't real numbers. I'm doing this like from the hip, but I know the difference. The difference from a $300,000 house at 7.5% interest to a $300,000 house at 6.5% interest is about $125 a month, roughly. So about $125 a month difference in your payment. The difference is, a year later, that $300,000 house is $312,000. So it's not $300,000 anymore. It's going to be a minimum, probably $312,000. A year later, you're paying more for that house. So yeah, your interest rate went down a little bit, but you're paying more. So wouldn't it make more sense to buy it now at 7.5% or whatever the rate is, and then just refinance in a year?
Yep.
And then lower it to 6.5%? We can do it. There's a way that we can do that, structure that refinance where we don't increase your principal balance. It doesn't cost you any extra money. You just have to make 2 payments. I have ways to do that we can work it where it's like the most beneficial. And then if it goes down to 5.5%, you refinance again. As long as you can do a no-cost refi, it makes sense to keep doing that.
So think about this. You wait a year, okay? Not only are you going to pay $12,000 more for that $300,000 house, but here's what you don't understand. When that interest rate goes down, now we have a bunch of sellers that have been waiting, and we have a boatload of buyers, and they're all going to meet, and we're going to have another 2020 on our hands where people are going to be paying over and above. They're going to pay $20,000, $30,000 over above asking price. So now you take $20,000 over asking, plus your $12,000.
You're paying a lot more.
So now you're going to pay $32,000 potentially for a $300,000 house, more to get that house.
Yeah, that's what people are doing in 2020.
If you would have borrowed the money today and then just refi. So the experts are saying, what are we saying?
Buy
the house.
Buy the house.
Buy the
Absolutely.
house.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, please get with us. We would love to sit down with you. We're not going to badger you, but we want to help you make the best decisions. And you could be like me, in 8 years, buy a house for $230 or $300, and then turn around and sell for $600, $700, make some money.
And if you're not ready, if you're concerned about credit or income, that's what I'm here for. Call me. We'll work it out. Like we can create a plan together to get you ready, and probably a lot faster than what you would think. The biggest thing with, that you can do things on where you think you're helping your credit, you're helping your income situation, you're actually hurting it. So it's good to talk to a mortgage professional so you understand, like, what's the fastest path for me to get to where I go. Do this all the time for people. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just free advice, free financial advice on like how to get yourself in the best position possible to buy a house when you qualify. If you qualify now, even if you barely qualify, I'm telling you, it is still worth buying. We'll work on your credit while you own the house. We'll refinance when rates come down, and your financial situation is just so much better. Are there risks? Yeah, you have repairs to get done. You might need a home warranty, to help cover some of that stuff. But you have repairs that can happen on a house. You have some big expenses, but at the end of the day, it's an investment that's making you money year over year over year. It's
been the best thing my wife and I've done. And here's what I'll also say: people don't die from what they know. Most people die from what they don't know. And I'm not necessarily like people. like people that are first-time home buyers. You're a first-time home buyer. You've never bought a house. I'm in the process of selling a house to a couple in their 40s, never bought a house before. Guess what? They don't know what they don't know, that now they're learning this stuff. I wish I would have learned this stuff earlier. And so let us as real estate and mortgage professionals help guide you. Ask us questions. There's no dumb question except the question that isn't asked.
Absolutely.
And we'll help you reach your goals. Hey,
Buy the
thanks,
house.
Jason.
Buy the house.